rich that The View is saying she got the job based on looks when DEI is all about based on look?
You're done. That's the message Karoline Leavitt just sent straight to The View. Loud, clear, and unapologetic. The $800 million lawsuit isn't just moving forward, it's going full throttle. And if ABC thought they could smooth things over with a few fake smiles and awkward on-air apologies, think again. Karoline isn't interested in playing nice. She's out for accountability. Just weeks ago, Whoopi, Joy, and Sunny were laughing this off as a political stunt. They called it a joke. Now, they're scrambling, trying to do damage control live on television. But Karoline's not backing down. In fact, she's turning up the heat, and ABC is starting to sweat. So before we pull back the curtain on this courtroom chaos and the behind-the-scenes panic at ABC, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. This is the kind of truth the mainstream won't dare touch. Subscribed? Perfect. Let's get into it.
They really don't like this woman. She's a good communicator. And so Joy Behar just offered her analysis on why Leavitt was picked for the role.
This wasn't just another episode of The View. It was the spark that lit a wildfire, and none of the hosts saw it coming. The moment Karoline Leavitt announced her $800 million defamation lawsuit, the studio air thickened with smug grins and sarcastic snickers. No one took her seriously. Not for a second. They didn't pause, didn't blink, didn't even consider the possibility that this might actually go somewhere. Joy Behar, never one to miss a punchline, laughed it off like a bad comedy sketch. Just another PR stunt, she shrugged. Another conservative looking for attention. Whoopi, cool and collected in her usual chair, rolled her eyes. "We've had worse," she muttered, clearly unfazed. "It'll disappear by next week." And then there was Sunny Hostin, the show's legal expert, smiling confidently as she told the audience, "This case, it has no legs. It won't even make it past the courthouse steps." They all laughed. The audience followed. Just another segment, just another guest, just another day on The View. But here's what they didn't realize. Karoline wasn't bluffing. She wasn't doing this for ratings or headlines. She wasn't chasing a trending hashtag. She was coming with receipts, real ones. Behind the scenes, her legal team was grinding, not just rewatching the episodes. They were pulling transcripts, sifting through production notes, combing internal emails, reviewing raw footage. They were digging deep. Her strategy was calm and calculated. No public outbursts, no interviews, no reactions. Just watch, wait, and gather. And while The View kept laughing on air, the mood over at ABC started to shift. The legal department began to panic, quietly, discreetly, but definitely. Producers got emails from corporate legal asking, "Do you recall saying this?" Editors were told to retrieve unaired footage. Assistants were dispatched to storage to search through years-old memos, because Karoline wasn't just accusing them of casual defamation. No, she was alleging something much bigger. A targeted smear, a character assassination, a takedown planned, not spontaneous, scripted even. And suddenly no one at ABC was laughing anymore.
I have to stop you with the camera, because I can see you. So do me a favor, don't pull it out again. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Then came the bombshell. Leaked messages straight from the show's internal Slack channels. One read, "Joy should press her hard on the youth angle. Get her flustered early." Another, "Keep the audience engaged." Cut to reactions when she stutters. And perhaps most damning of all, a handwritten note in a producer's planning notebook. "Let her dig her own grave. Just ask about Trump, she'll spiral." This wasn't just about what aired. This was about what happened before the cameras started rolling. About intent. About a coordinated effort to embarrass and undermine her in front of a national audience. Suddenly, those smug chuckles and viral sound bites weren't aging so well. What once echoed in living rooms across America was now being replayed in dead silence. Inside courtrooms, legal offices, and crisis PR war rooms. And through it all, Karoline didn't lash out. She didn't post a fiery thread. She didn't subtweet anyone. She didn't need to. She simply handed her team the evidence and let the legal machine do what it does best: grind.
Democrats in the media are now unloading all their nasty attacks on rising Trump White House star and new press secretary Karoline Leavitt. Watch this.
Because when the truth is on your side, there's no need to yell, you just wait and let the storm come to them. As the days ticked by, the vibe inside ABC shifted fast and hard. One moment, the execs were brushing it off with smirks. The next, they were scrambling like the building was on fire. At first, it was business as usual. Monday morning Zoom calls were casual. We've handled worse. One executive chuckled, sipping coffee like this would all blow over. This'll pass like all the others. But by Thursday, panic mode. Full-blown crisis. Lawyers were called in, not the regular in-house ones, but the heavyweight legal firepower. Damage control firms were onboarded. PR consultants began tracking public sentiment hour by hour. Executives canceled vacations. Entire departments were instructed to compile documentation. Every email, every note, every meeting, because what started as a frivolous lawsuit had morphed into a full-scale PR inferno. And the part that had ABC's leadership really sweating, Karoline's team hadn't even hit the discovery phase yet. Discovery meant both sides would be legally required to turn over evidence. All of it. Internal emails, host-producer text chains, raw, unedited footage, planning documents, HR records, backstage conversations, every shady whisper suddenly up for grabs. And ABC knew there were skeletons. They always knew. One leaked internal memo, dated 6 months before the interview, warned, concerns growing over treatment of young conservative guests. Tone feels increasingly aggressive, possibly intentional. Another flag from HR simply stated, there's a pattern emerging, strategic tension building with certain guests. Unclear if this is editorial strategy or personal bias. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a paper trail, and it was about to be cracked wide open.
These women are completely out of touch with reality, and you're right, ABC should wake up.
These weren't just scribbled thoughts, they were warnings, clear documented red flags, and they were completely ignored. As the pressure mounted, the panic trickled down the chain. Interns who once quietly fetched coffee during planning meetings were now being pulled into conference rooms and asked what they remembered. Junior producers started reaching out to personal attorneys. Some employees were caught frantically deleting old texts. Others quietly slipped out of group chats and wiped their digital footprints. Meanwhile, Karoline's team, silent. No interviews, no press tours, no dramatic tweets or breaking news exclusives. Just pure, icy silence. Strategic, deliberate, and deeply unsettling. The quiet wasn't just loud, it was terrifying. One ABC executive was overheard telling a colleague, "It feels like she's already won, and we're just waiting for the paperwork."
Looks
for me, and sort of lived lives of dreams deferred and poured everything in me, and just my life, how I transitioned from college. I went to college when I was 16, high school when I was 12, the struggle of that, and my career as a federal prosecutor, and then how I found my way.
The team kept asking for updates. The executives kept dodging because there was nothing good to say. Every new day uncovered a fresh liability. Every hour, another leak. The legal department floated the idea of a quiet settlement, hoping to stop the bleeding. But PR pushed back. Cutting a check would look like an admission of guilt. And worse, what if Karoline said no? This wasn't just a lawsuit anymore. It was a war, and ABC was getting steamrolled. By the time the hosts were fully looped in, the damage was already done. They had laughed Karoline off on live television. They had mocked the lawsuit off camera. Now they were sitting in meetings, watching the network quake beneath their feet. Whoopi Goldberg didn't tiptoe in. She stormed into the room, late from set, hair half done, makeup towel still in hand. She barely hit her chair before exploding. We're seriously talking about cutting a deal with her? Executives tried to explain the stakes, the emails, the damning footage, the fact that if even one producer caved, the whole case could snowball into a media disaster. But Whoopi wasn't hearing it. "We're making her a hero," she snapped. "You think Twitter's bad now? Wait till they find out we bought her silence." Joy Behar jumped in, just as furious. "We built this damn show," she said sharply. "We carried this network through elections, scandals, shutdowns, and now we're folding over one lawsuit?" Silence. All eyes shifted to Sunny Hostin, the legal expert, the one person who could cut through the chaos with facts. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't posture. She just picked up the printed lawsuit, slid it back across the table, and calmly said, "She has enough to take it to court, and if that happens, it won't just be about us. It'll be about the entire network." Whoopi's glare sharpened. "So what? Now we apologize?" Sunny didn't respond. She didn't have to. The silence was her answer. And that, more than anything, was what chilled the room. Because deep down, they all knew. It might be the only way out.
She was conflating two ideas. This word wokeness didn't look like she really understood what it meant, or certainly the way Karoline Leavitt meant it when she made that statement, and she was conflating it with civil rights and how, women didn't have the right to vote or own property and all of that. That has nothing to do with wokeness, which is, of course, about putting people in there because of their immutable characteristics rather than the merit that they bring to the table.
When the cameras turned on that morning, something was off, and everyone watching could feel it. The set of The View looked the same. Polished stage, bright lights, familiar faces, but the energy? It was nothing like before. Gone were the sharp quips, the playful back and forth, the confident swagger. In their place, tense silence and long, awkward pauses that hung in the air like fog. Whoopi sat still, hands folded tightly in her lap. The usual spark in her eyes was missing. She stared directly into the camera, took a slow breath, and said quietly, "Things have gotten a little out of hand. Maybe we need to take a step back." That alone was enough to make longtime viewers sit up. But then Joy Behar spoke, and for once, there was no punchline waiting. Her voice was shaky, uncertain. "I don't know why this has to go so far," she murmured. "Can't we just talk?" The woman known for brushing off controversy like lint from a blazer suddenly looked unsure. And then came Sunny, calm, collected, measured. She leaned forward, looked straight into the lens, and spoke not to the audience, but to Karoline. "Karoline, if you're watching, maybe there's a better way to handle this. Maybe we can still find it." 3 hosts, 3 appeals, no sarcasm, no smugness, just a quiet, almost scripted attempt to stop the bleeding. But to many watching, it didn't feel like reconciliation. It felt like surrender.
Attacking a woman for her looks or age isn't very progressive. Let's bring in Sky News contributor Kosha Garda. Kosha, particularly that last clip that we played, it was so condescending. The way that she was scolding her as if she was a schoolgirl, suggesting she needed to do her homework. I find it so hypocritical when these so-called, caring, progressive voices just turn so nasty like that.
Yes, and as you mentioned, with conservative women, there's a long list of that, both of Trump's previous press secretaries, females, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Kayleigh McEnany, other figures like his campaign manager the first time, Kellyanne Conway, Sarah Palin very famously had to bear the brunt of a lot of this. So people are used to that. I think in their bubble of the audience that The View speaks to, that's probably kind of what the group think is. So one defense, I guess, is that she was speaking to her audience, but you take it outside of that bubble the way you are right now, and we all can see.
Gone were the snide remarks. Gone was the smug laughter. In its place, pure, unmistakable desperation. But Karoline didn't flinch. No victory lap, no press conference, not even a vague, knowing tweet. Her team issued just one icy line. "We are moving forward as planned." And with that, the message was clear. This wasn't about dialogue. This wasn't about settling differences. This was about accountability. Karoline had waited. She had watched. She had collected. And now, while The View scrambled to save face, she stayed silent, letting their panic echo louder than anything she could possibly say. The hosts may have softened their tone, but the audience wasn't buying it. This wasn't remorse. This was fear, plain and obvious. And America saw it. Within minutes of the episode airing, the internet exploded. Clips of the hosts' awkward on-air plea went viral almost instantly. Side-by-side edits began circulating. One moment showing them laughing at Karoline just a week ago, and the next showing their sudden, uncomfortable about face. One tweet summed it up perfectly. "If you weren't guilty, you wouldn't be begging." Another, "That's not an apology, that's damage control." Hashtags started trending across every platform, and Karoline was right. View meltdown, media accountability, receipts, don't lie TikTok creators dove in, frame by frame, analyzing every facial expression, every shift in tone. YouTubers dropped 30-minute breakdowns, pointing out the inconsistencies, the fear behind the smiles. Even meme pages joined the digital pile-on. One viral meme showed Whoopi's face next to a sinking ship with the caption, "Captain goes down with The View." Another had Joy Behar gripping a binder labeled "lawsuit" with the text, "When your hot take turns into a deposition." Brutal, hilarious, and everywhere. Conservative outlets jumped on it immediately. Fox News dedicated entire segments to the public fallout. But this wasn't just a right-wing victory lap. Even some moderate and left-leaning commentators weighed in, saying this moment went beyond politics. It was about truth, about responsibility, about media power finally facing real scrutiny. And still, Karoline stayed quiet. No gloating, no smug interviews, no sound bites. She let the storm speak for itself. Let the footage, the leaks, the silence tell the world everything it needed to know. And every second The View tried to plug the holes in their sinking ship, Karoline gained more ground, more supporters, more credibility, more momentum, because sometimes the loudest statement is saying nothing at all.
Do you want to take this?
So you cannot be attractive and smart? I will try to give Joy the benefit, and well, thank you. I try to give Joy the benefit of the doubt that she didn't see that briefing. Because if you saw that yesterday on numerous topics, no big binder, I think she might have had a different impression of this young woman who held her own.
I mean, you would have to give her the benefit of the doubt that she did absolutely no research or reading about anything dealing with Karoline Leavitt before she made that remark. Because Karoline Leavitt she went to St. Anselm College. She worked for WMUR
Ran for Congress?
In New Hampshire. She ran for Congress at the age of 25, put out a very good campaign. She lost by 8 or 9 points, but she still put on a good campaign. Then she was the press secretary for the Trump campaign, going on TV literally every day.
Well, heavily pregnant and a new mom.
Pregnant. Yeah, she's a new mother. And then she goes out yesterday and gives and this again, this is speaking very objectively, because I've watched every press secretary since going back to Marlon Fitzwater. Yeah, I'm that old. And she went out there for her very first briefing at the age of 27 years old, the youngest press secretary ever. And did a terrific job.
By this point, everyone was bracing for Karoline to make a move. A press tour, a fiery public statement, maybe a sit-down interview to bask in the spotlight. But she didn't flinch. She didn't waver. She didn't budge. Her team stayed locked in. No distractions, no bait, no detours into the media circus. While the world buzzed around her, they were focused on one thing, the case. They weren't chasing headlines. They were reviewing footage, logging timestamps, interviewing witnesses, cataloging every shred of communication, and the message behind closed doors couldn't be clearer. Karoline wasn't here to make noise. She was here to make history. The legal filings airtight, testimonies piling up by the day, every offhand comment, every inappropriate joke, every producer's memo and poorly worded email, they were no longer just mistakes. They were pieces of evidence. And all of them were forming one thing the network couldn't outrun: a timeline, a pattern, a case. And Karoline, she was just getting started.
They likened President Trump to Hitler. They have mocked him. They have shamed him. They have lied about him consistently on their show. And it was a joy to watch them on November the 6th when they realized that tens of millions of Americans do not listen to the lies that they have spewed. These women are completely out of touch with reality. And you're right. ABC should wake up. They just paid $15 million to President Trump's future library. That's a great thing for the American people.
Karoline wasn't doing this out of spite. She wasn't on a revenge tour. She was doing it because she was done. Done with the double standards. Done being mocked on national television and silenced behind closed doors. Done with hollow apologies and performative outrage. She'd seen it all before, but this time she had something most people never do: leverage. And she wasn't about to waste it. Some called her brave. Others called her calculated. But most, they just called her right. She wasn't yelling. She wasn't finger pointing. She was simply moving forward with purpose. Meanwhile, The View was shrinking fast. Inside ABC, chaos had taken root. Executives were now holding emergency meetings twice a day. Major advertisers were quietly pulling out, cutting ties without fanfare. Staffers were updating LinkedIn profiles in the middle of workdays. Panic was no longer behind closed doors. It was spilling into everything. Leaked memos showed email subject lines like reputational risk escalation, contingency strategy, View. It wasn't just a legal issue anymore. It was a full-blown identity crisis. Some execs floated the idea of rebranding the show entirely. Others weren't so optimistic. They were ready to pull the plug. This isn't just a lawsuit, one insider reportedly said. This is a brand collapse. And they weren't wrong. The fallout wasn't just legal. It was emotional, cultural, historical. The kind of damage that doesn't get fixed with a new logo or a tearful segment. This was the kind of reckoning that rewrites the story entirely. And Karoline, she was still silent. silent, still steady, still winning.
Well, listen, if you don't have anything to say, you blab. You just go on and 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 on. Right. That's what you hear. Yeah. When they don't have anything to hold you with, nothing to make you think about what they have to say, they talk at you, not to you. And that's what she was doing. And she was doing it, and it's not new. No. But everybody's hip to you all now. Yeah. And we are anticipating that you are not prepared. Because you keep saying you going and you preparing when you're on the trail.
The View had long branded itself as the voice of daytime truth-telling, fearless, unfiltered, authentic. But now viewers were seeing the cracks in the facade, the rehearsed lines, the scripted chaos, the bullying masked as banter.
I would like this young lady this is her first job, I would like her to do a little homework. Because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here. Oh, yeah. Let me explain something to you. Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job. Yeah. Because women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason, because black people couldn't get into colleges, because women could not get into the colleges they wanted to go to. This is all women. Yeah. See, this is not black, Asian women. This is all women. Women were not invited to this party. It was a man's world, and we busted our asses to make sure that this was...
And Karoline? She wasn't backing down. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She wasn't chasing interviews or airtime. She stood her ground, calm, composed, unwavering. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about setting the record straight, and millions of Americans were watching her do it with respect.
Voters do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans, and frankly, they should seek immediate help, because voters are going to re-elect President Trump back to the White House very soon, because voters see these trials that are being brought forward against President Trump for what they are. They are sham show trials. They are election interference in an attempt to imprison President Trump. And the irony in all of this is that Joe Biden and the Democrats and these ladies on The View constantly say President Trump is the alleged threat to democracy, when in fact they themselves are wishfully thinking that President Trump will be imprisoned when he has not been convicted of any crimes. That is the real threat to democracy. Voters see that, and that's why President Trump continues his dominance in the polls, not just with Republicans and independents, but he's also picking up historic gains with Democrat constituencies such as African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and union workers.
What happens next could rewrite the rule book for talk shows, for media personalities, for how far networks can go before someone finally pushes back. Because Karoline didn't flinch, she fought, and now the storm she brought with her is far from over. So now it's your turn. Did The View go too far? Is Karoline right to hold her ground? Should media shows be held legally responsible for what they say on air? That's all from today's video. If you enjoyed it, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and ring that bell icon so you never miss our upcoming videos. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments section. Stay tuned, and we will catch you in the next video.